Happy New Year. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here for another astrology oracle. This is the first reading of 2023 and let's get into it. As always, I am referencing an event chart for Dayton, Ohio at 11:11 a.m. This is giving us an 11-degree Capricorn sun, a 14-degree Pisces rising, and a 24-degree Taurus moon. So the new year we ushered in with a sun, moon, trine, and earth signs. We love to see it. We are also seeing some very dynamic trine energy between the moon and, let's see here, Mercury, Pluto, Venus has kind of all had some sort of trine in the last few days or last few hours, depending on where you're at in the world. So we love to see this. At least I love to see this. It's very reinforcing, very stabilizing, very grounding to see so many planets and earth signs and to see them having such a positive, harmonious trine being made between them. Very here for that. The Pisces rising in this chart is really setting up all of these placements to fall like almost in the houses that they're synced with. So for example, that Capricorn sun is in the 10th house. We have Taurus ruling the 2nd house, Libra in the 7th house. So yeah, just all around, this is a really beautiful sight to see. You know, we have a lot of zodiac and its corresponding house placements, which to me gives a very strengthening, you know, vibe in general, because there's kind of a familial association happening there. Although not all of the planets are in their familial signs, we still have Mars and Gemini retrograde. We do have Saturn in Aquarius, which is actually at home there at 22 degrees. You can see Rosie in the back here is joining me in the office today. Yeah, you know, we've seen Jupiter just ingress into Aries. At some point, you know, eventually it's going to sync up to that Chiron in Aries. And that will be a very interesting sight to see, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Mercury, of course, is still retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So, you know, we entered into the new year with Uranus in retrograde, Mars in retrograde. I should let her out. As I was saying, we entered into the new year with, you know, a lot of dynamic energy retrograde. Mercury, Mars, Uranus, these are kind of already some, you know, unpredictable, tricky, fast-moving planets to begin with. So when we are entering into a new season, a new era, whatever you'd like to qualify this new year as for you, you know, we're entering into all of that with a lot of backwards motion and backwards energy from planets that are so forward thinking and so forward associated. So it's kind of interesting to see that. You know, but in general, like, there's not a lot of super hateful things in this chart. Saturn is squaring the moon, but we've seen worse. As somebody who's been going through a Saturn-moon conjunction, we've seen worse. But anyway, yeah, very happy to be starting in a new year. I'm happy. Nothing else to say. We are down to just 5 cards left, if you can even believe it. I really can't, but you know, we are in a new year. I've been doing these astrology oracles now, you know, all throughout 2022, and I am in the process of kind of trying to see and decide where we should take the YouTube channel next, now that we're going to have covered a lot of the astrology oracle here. I would still like to do readings and reports, but if you have any ideas or suggestions or things that you would like to see, leave a comment below. I'd love to know. All right, I'm going right in the middle today, and this is giving us the 3rd house. So in this particular chart, as I mentioned, a lot of the zodiacal signs are matching up with the houses they are associated with. And in this case, we have the 3rd house ruled by Gemini, which is its happy placement, to be honest. Although the 3rd house is very happy to see any air sign in its place, or even Virgo, because there's a lot of mercurial, airy energy that really flows here. Now, if you're someone who has a fire sign or a water sign in the 3rd house, that doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that the way that you will pay attention to these archetypes may be a little more intuitive or a little bit more from feeling rather than like cold logic. or something, for example. So the third house, again, it is associated with Gemini. The mantra here is messages. And this has a lot to do with, of course, mercurial things such as communication, traveling locally. The third house is associated not just with like speaking and idea sharing, but also your siblings, like local transits. So like bus systems in your city or things of that nature, things that stay very close to home, right? So this is also a place that we'll look to for our friends. Obviously, the 11th house is also the house of friendship, but these are more like, you know, like cousins that you feel are siblings or friends that you feel are siblings or something of that nature. There's just a little more closeness, almost like family feeling there, whereas the 11th house is more like bigger social groups. And I do have a video on that if you're interested to learn more. But when we come to the third house, we're really arriving at the like first place in the birth chart where we're learning about our style of sharing and receiving ideas from others. So if you were a Gemini third house, then you're probably someone who's very talkative with your close group of friends, perhaps very intellectually stimulated. Whatever planets that you may have natally could really influence the way that you speak. So because we have Mars retrograde to look at in the third house, this could be seen as somebody who, you know, is perhaps a very forceful speaker or really impactful, really inspiring, really passionate speaker, because those are a lot of the archetypes that we associate with Mars. Me personally, I have the moon, black moon, Lilith, and Saturn in the third house. And we can break apart what that means in another video, but for the sake of this conversation, you know, my communication style is, you know, very direct and very intuitive. I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm very good at breaking down complex ideas into a very understandable format. We can also thank my Libra Mercury for that. But the idea of having like Saturn in the third house, you know, it's a mature style of communication and writing. The moon being present, it inserts some of that like soul-bearing intuitive, right? And when you look at the kind of like work I've done in the sector of communication, journalism, local journalism, cannabis activism, you know, it kind of makes sense to see that I do a lot of conversating and research around, you know, institutions and spirituality and plant medicine and a lot of things where you can find, you know, pieces of like why I am the way I am and why I communicate the way that I do right in my own birth chart. So look to your third house and see what zodiacal ruler you have and any planets that you have there. And this can just be a really good way for you to like learn, you know, what do you need to have better boundaries around in communication? What do you need to like let come through more in your communication? Talking about my emotions is not something that I'm very strong at doing, thanks to my Aquarius third house. And then the fact that those Saturn and Black Moon Lilith and the moon are all in Aquarius in my third house. But this has been something that, like, you know, in a very Aquarian fashion, I've learned that as I start to crack open and share my thoughts and feelings and experiences, so too will other people. So third house, it's all about exchanging, you know, because it's mercurial. We also have to pay attention to, you know, tricky or, you know, comedic applications of communication. So, you know, being that I have Saturn ruling my third house along with these other signs, I'm not really someone who is very comedic in my style of communicating or talking. I'm not very sarcastic. That's just not my style. It's not who I am. And so when I kind of tap into some of more of that, that's where like my moon's taking over and I'm probably like feeling some type of way. But, you know, let's say that you have Jupiter in the third house, then expanding your presence and knowledge and awareness of those third house archetypes is really something that would be so beneficial to you because, you know, when we look at the birth chart, the first 7 houses are really like, they're beneath the horizon line. And those houses are very, you know, early childhood experiences, things that you've been through many times in life, even, you know, these things are kind of like foundational, where we don't really have a lot of conscious thought and conscious application to them until we get a little bit older, you know. So this is also a really good area to kind of tap into, you know, looking back on diaries and journals, looking back at, you know, old photos of yourself, things like this, you know what I mean? If you have Neptune in the third house, I just know that you have photo books on top of photo books on top of photo galleries, right? Things like that, because Neptune rules photography. So again, you can learn a lot about, you know, how you deal with others based on communication. And, you know, because the mantra of this card is messages aren't always explicitly and directly received, right? Again, if you're someone with Neptune, you know, in the third house, you may be more attuned to receiving like spiritual messages or, you know, divine downloads and things, much more than the average person. It all depends on your birth chart and things of this nature. But, you know, for the sake of this conversation, we do have Mars retrograde in Gemini in the third house, and it's a good reminder in true Mercury retrograde fashion that this is an excellent time to revise, edit, look back at things. If you're, you know, looking to publish something or make a significant announcement, a great reminder to just go back and double check, triple check it, right? Third house, triple check it. Why not? You know, because you may find things in the second or third pass over that you weren't looking for or that weren't coming out to you. This is the journalist in me, you know, coming out, but typically around, you know, the beginning of the new year, people make so many fantastic announcements about, you know, business expansion or, you know, growing their family, whatever these things are, and whatever, how significant they are to you. If you want the message to be received the way you wish it to, it never hurts to do another scan over whatever it is that you're putting out there into the world, because intentions aside, you don't know how that message will be received, right? But what you do have control over is what you say. So the third house. Let's get to my handy booklet here for some more information. All right. The quote here is from Ray Bradbury from the Zen in the Art of Writing. I need to get that book. You must stay drunk on writing, so reality cannot destroy you. Words have power. Now is the time to get your point across. With this card, you may also get a clearer direction in the ways to proceed. The third house represents neighborhoods and siblings. It's the area of the astrological chart that reveals how we think, speak, and communicate. It signifies our need to know and demonstrates how we put our concepts and thoughts into words. You are in search of answers and in need of unlocking mysteries, but your mind is agile and you're able to grasp every detail right now. You may wish to express this mental suppleness through writing, speaking, and researching subject matter which has always intrigued you. Once again, because it's Mercury retrograde right now, this isn't typically associated with the best time to move forward with publishing, but is an amazing time for research. So, you know, whether you're a college student that's working on papers soon, or whether you are in the midst of a capstone, whether you are putting together some, you know, documents for your business for the new year, whatever it is, if you can do some research to like fortify, very Capricorn, then this is really the move. Libraries call to you. You may suddenly wake up with an idea that could be very lucrative. You may be toying with the idea of writing a book, starting a blog, perhaps a screenplay, or a position at a local news media outlet. There couldn't be a better time than now. As well as dreamy and imaginative writing and poetry, the third house also represents dexterity, swiftness, curiosity, and figuring out the mechanisms of making things work. This could also mean expressing yourself through something technical. The third house, more than any other, is the house of the mind. Mercury is about giving and receiving information. When this card turns up in a reading, there is a need to uncover all you can and relate the information to others. Also an area of commerce and sales where the third house represents itself. It can indicate a time of buying and selling, being involved in retail, or even transactions made over the internet. Issues dealing with siblings could come up. There could be questions that you must resolve. Your neighborhood could also be going through some kind of change. The third house, signifying your neighborhood, can also, you should anticipate that events could make a difference here. look at surrounding cards. So if you're someone who likes to follow along, either pulling from this same deck or pulling cards in addition to this reading, paying attention to what's accompanying multiple cards within a reading is always really important to kind of, pick up on the synchronicities that are going on there. You don't want to look at like each card individually when you're doing a spread. It is about how they relate to one another, depending on the reading. This card could mean that you're talking your way in and out of tough situations. You're mentally able to grapple with issues and sort them out. Important documents and paperwork are indicated. Tax season is coming up slowly but surely, where a lot of people will be, working on filing their W-2s and their 1099s. Again, this is a really good time to be combing over your expenses, all of the invoices that you've sent and received, just to make sure that you're not missing anything that could be a really valuable write-off for you. What else do we have? This isn't your everyday type of paper shuffling. More significant matters are indicated. This also indicates, doesn't say significant. This card also indicates a fortunate time to start a business on your own, work in translation, create software, or do something with deciphering codes and messages. You may also want to look into studying other languages or something around working toward a common good. Meditation and relaxation are suggested when this card is present. It's likely that you're inspiring others and that you may even have some psychic or mediumistic communications. So, the third house. I love that this card is sending us into, the first week of the year. It makes so much sense with Mercury and Capricorn. And again, thinking about tax season. If you're looking at launching a business, buying a house, anything big that's on your horizon, just double check that you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, my friends. So, the third house. Here we are. That's all I have for you today. I will see you all next week. Take care of yourself and take care of others. Happy New Year. Bye.